Thank you. You know what? Over the past 9 years, I trained everybody from a person in a refugee camp trying to pitch an idea for parental control for application. I trained an engineer trying to extract copper zinc out of metal sludge, metal waste. I trained a scientist who deals with cartilage tissue, stem cells. That's some very different stuff I got to hear over the years. And one of the things that I never dreamed of is that I'm going to be doing this for a living. Now, when I was a kid, I left Estonia. I went to a city called Kirov, and Kirov is a city in the middle of nowhere, somewhere between Moscow and Siberia, if I'm not mistaken. Now, when I came back to Estonia, it was a different nation, a different country, and I left alone a lot. I roamed the streets, I wandered the streets, and sometimes I was lost. My dad was not there, my mom was, but she was in a different world. And in those moments, this man, how many of you know this man? Could you please raise your hand? How many of you know this man? All right. Well, thanks to this man, I found peace, comfort. How many of you know him now? All right, very good. That wonder quote kind of really appealed to me. It's from a poem that he created. And what I did not know at the time is his stories. I'm going to nerd out all the way, so guys, get ready. I did not know that his storytelling technique resembles one that is very old, that goes back to ancient myths. It goes back to a journey. And the journey starts with the hero. And specifically, this is Heracles. But the story that I'm going to tell you specifically starts with this little wheel. The wheel, how many of you know this wheel? How many of you know what I'm going to talk about? Hands up. All right. The hero's journey. Now, you don't have to read every single text that's behind me. What I'm going to tell you, I'm going to break it down, specifically like this. Now, I'm also going to give you examples later on, but first, just bear with me. Now, the stories occasionally, there's a hero, he's called to an adventure, he's changing things. He's going through a change himself, and that's what the story is about. Not just from point A to B to C to D, not just sequential logic, but something deeper, greater symbolism. We're talking about Greek, Roman, Norse myth, and I will tell you how this applies to you. But first, let me nerd out for myself a little bit. Now, this is how it essentially looks like, bit by bit. That's the wheel. But what's more interesting is, let's say, the story that Tolkien got most inspired by came out of Norse mythology. And one of the stories I'm going to tell you now, specifically about Odin and how he lost his eye, because, he's the wise king of his pantheon, and that's fascinating for me. And what's funny enough is that Tolkien based Gandalf based on Odin, a manifestation of this, and I did not know this. As a child, I got inspired by the stories, and I did not know exactly how it works. I did not know that, but it gave me peace and comfort. At the same time, when he goes and seeks wisdom, prevent, Ragnarok, which is the end of times, he goes through a journey of change. He doesn't want to change. He resisted. Like many founders in this room, you might find a problem, you might find a solution to it, but you have to go through hell sometimes to make it happen. And the odds, as you know, are not in your favor a lot of the time. But somehow you have to believe, like the ancient people of Norway and Sweden and beyond used to believe, which is fascinating for me. You got the idea, guys. Odin goes through this transformation. He goes through this change, and eventually he sacrifices his right eye with his right hand. He plucks out and puts it essentially in a bowl, and he figures out what to do. He sees the end of times and how he can lead his people to safety. He pays a price for wisdom. That story I did not know, but I implicitly read about it in Tolkien's work without realizing it. It has affected me on a deeper level. But let me bring it back to his actual writing. So this is how Odin's wheel looks like in total. But if we go back to the modern myths, the one that affected me the most, that contains Celtic, Norse mythology, Germanic mythology, I'm telling you, you can be appreciated by, you can argue whether he was affected by Wagner or not, but he definitely was affected by Norse myth. You probably know this. You know the story. You've read about it. You've seen it in the movies. For me, though, what was most exciting, though, is not the dragon. It's not the ring. It's specifically what Frodo had to go through to change, to evolve as a person from respectability in his boring shire down to eventually finding that sacrifice and not caring about gold is the thing for him. That has somehow stuck with me, almost like a religious motif. That's the full journey. You see the structure, guys. You see the structure. And as a kid, you don't know this. It's implicit. It's invisible. The plot lines are like strings. You don't see them. But here's a story that is from my study. Now, I've taken 215,000 words, transcriptions, word by word, for one of the biggest conferences in the region that started in 2008, Slush. Now, Slush, it has a format where there's 100 founders on average go on stage like this and pitch. They tell their tale for 3 minutes. And then they're asked questions. And Sako is one of them. Now, Sako's journey, I'm going to want to take half of it. And again, look at me. You don't need to look at the text per se. But what I can tell is that it follows the same pattern that Bilbo had to go through, Odin had to go through. But we just don't see it. We understand storytelling is nothing new. Even you heard about it. You heard about it from the previous speaker in terms of pitching to journalists. But there's something else. And we will get really practical very soon. What's more interesting for me, though, is that Talent at Door raised around $2 million. That's their Slush presentation. $2 million specifically in dollars. And they represent, for that year, now Slush, the Slush 100, raised over $100 million in funding. At least. There's more. There's a lot of data I would not get, but I've gone through step by step every company figuring out. And Sako at least represents 2% of that. His story, his delivery worked. It got him funding, and his team is growing right now, which is fascinating for me. Now, I'm not saying specifically that stories get you funding. This is a very difficult claim to make. What I do know is that based on my analysis of people sharing their personal pain on stage in front of people as part of a pitch, those people raised around 1/3 of the funding so far, of that $100 million. Somehow it sticks, it works. This is the data set I have so far. Now, you don't have to read all the numbers, but specifically, look at the words being used. Some of it are usual suspects. Some of you make me laugh. Now, again, words and phrases. Now, investors in the room, you probably heard so much of it, you're sick and tired of it. I am definitely sick and tired of it. How many easy-to-use phrases can I listen to? How many, hey, we have a platform, a problem, we have a solution. And how many can I listen to? They follow interesting, predictable patterns. Categories. Now, this is partially thanks to Slush. They've provided me a little bit of this information. But specifically, what I can tell you, this is the trends. This is the categories of the businesses, which fields they operated in the most. Now, some of them have more tags. This is for all the trend junkies out there. This is where it's moving. I'm also going to have a 2018 data set. So if your company is part of those, now some recurring patterns like mobile are always there. Pace. Now this is a good one. When you pitch like a machine gun and going do, this happens at Slush. Now the winning pitch was around, for 2017, around 116 words per minute. Now you're asking me, why does this matter? Why does this matter? Well, on average, a single pitch, a 3-minute pitch, can take 450 words. If you race through them, you only get so much in the minds of the audience. It's very hard to tell your story when you're racing. Instead, a leisurely pace of 130, 140 can help you out. I used to write articles on this, but I did not know the real deal, and now I know. It follows a normal distribution curve, which is fascinating for me. Some Finns tend to be very super-duper slow. They talk like this. Not all of them, but a few. Now, the data set represents over 28%. They're Finns. Well, it's a conference in Helsinki. 47 countries. So keep in mind, this data set is very diverse. Very, very diverse. It's not just this concentration. People from Latvia, the past 2 years, they started accelerating. More people started coming in. Gender ratios are popular nowadays, right? There's marginal improvement, but that's not because we have so much more women. It means we just had more cancellations in 2017. 91 people. But here's what matters to you, especially, remind me, how many CEOs and founders in the room? Please, hands up. All right, very good. You'll love this. You'll love this. I compared my study, my observational study essentially, with a different one done by Columbia University researchers. How many of you know TechCrunch, right? You heard about this, right? So they have a conference called, essentially a pitching competition called TechCrunch Disrupt, the battleground. Their format is 6 minutes and 6 minutes Q&A. This is a comparison between that, and they found something very, very fascinating. And I'm going to share that with you, though. But before I do, let's get to the themes. These are the themes, the questions that are being asked. This is funny, because I see this as a human being. I see this when I train people. I look at some of the people here, and these are the topics being asked. Now, they're very predictable. But what's behind them is not so, which is fascinating. The TechCrunch Disrupt study I told you about looked at 2 types of questions. Now, some of you might have seen a TED Talk on the subject. And they formulated that VCs, investors, would ask you 2 types. Prevention questions, which would be, hey, what's your competition? It seems like a crowded market. How many of you got asked about your competitions by investors? Hands up. All right, it's a popular subject. That can lead you to a prevention orientation. But before I get there, I need to tell you the promotion ones. The promotions are the softball questions, the ones that will be focused on, hey, where do you see yourself in next year? How fast could this grow? The ones that allow you to actually speak about the future, the growth, the potential of your business. That's what a promotion question is. And these are the examples of it. You know, you don't have to read all the text. Just listen to me. The prevention questions are a little more sneaky. They take different shapes, forms, ideas, but they matter and impact your work. If somebody asks you to prove how you're capable, that affects your funding, and I'm going to tell it by exactly how much. Somebody asks you about the competition, that affects your funding. Somebody asks you about your market share that you can take. Again, prevention, that can affect your funding. Now, this is a friend, and in fact, I think last year, I got him a beer on stage while I was moderating. Yuko is a lovely man, a very sweet man. I don't know if he's here and will he be ever watching this. I'm going to ask the audience here. You got the idea, prevention, promotion. What kind of question or series of questions are these? Come on. Feel free to engage. Shoot. Is it a prevention question or a promotion question? All right, people who believe it's a promotion question, hands up. All right, people who believe it's a prevention question, hands up. Neutral. All right, neutral. All right, this question is a promotion one. Specifically, it focuses on the big idea, the big picture. What's the vision? And a dead giveaway, the numbers are great. He was referring to supermetrics specifically, but I will get that a bit later. Now, here's the comparison between me and the TechCrunch Disrupt study. Now, they had a lot more promotion questions, a lot more neutral questions. But Slush had over half, a lot of them, over half the questions are prevention-focused. And here's what it means for you. When you get that question and you address it the same way, 5 to 7 times less funding raised, potentially. A Q&A can make or break your presentation, your pitch. And if you don't know how to address that, it's going to affect you. A lot of data, right? It's a year-by-year comparison. It's consistent almost. 54, 51, 57, year after year, dominated by prevention questions, which is fascinating for me, which means for you, and then the VCs in the room, coaches in the room, you gotta get your teams ready. And I'm not talking about just going for the questions that you normally get, which is useful. You need a grill learning how to reframe them, and we will have a practical exercise for that. What makes things very difficult, ladies and gentlemen, is when you get a Frankenstein question. You know what a Frankenstein question is? Is when it consists of a lot of small body parts. 26 words doesn't seem like a lot, but when you even have to read it on the slide, it's an eternity. And imagine a founder who's, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we have traction, yes. You have 2 minutes, 3 minutes to answer the Q&A, and you're already stressed out, and then you get a long-winded question by one of the VCs, one of the jury members, and then you start, I'm sorry, I didn't get the question, and it wastes your time. A tool for this, of course, is to thank them, paraphrase them, sir, did you mean this? Is that what you're asking me? Oh, thank you. And then answering it, that's useful. Please, people on juries, shorter questions, pretty please, with cherry on top. I'm looking at some of my friends here, all right? But the answers, I'll get back to this, but the answers are double the amount. One of the prime examples here, that was the answer to Juha's question about the vision, the big idea, the great numbers. Founders here, a lot of the coaches here, especially my friends at Wise Guys, you know, keep your answer short, keep your answer short. Put a period at the end of it. But people don't. Because you keep wanting to talk about your business. You want to explain it. Most importantly, you're not thinking through in advance what you're going to say. You're just, we're currently developing this, yeah, and we have a plan to do. You get the idea, a lot of filler. And that's dominated, over 80%, very long. Here's another way exercise. This is by an unknown French investor. He talked like this, you know. I have a question for you. And my friends at Change Ventures would probably appreciate this one because it's a question addressed to one of their portfolio companies. They got it to the Slush 100. What sort of question is this? People who believe it's a prevention question or a prevention question, hands up. All right, promotion question, hands up. All right, we have a very, it is a prevention question specifically because it shows, it's vetting, it's minimizing risk. It's trying to figure out whether the founder knows what they're doing. You already got this. But let's see how he answered it. Now, the fellow on the left. What sort of answer is this? Ladies and gentlemen, come on, speak up. What sort of question, what sort of answer is this? Promotion, prevention, neutral. What is it? Promotion. Why? He tries at least. Keep in mind, these are transcriptions, and I had to edit them a little bit so you actually understand what's being said. In a stress environment, a lot of filler happens. He still talks about monetization. He got a prevention question. His opening line was very brutal. Yeah, we don't care. And I edited that out. But specifically, the core of his answer was focused on growth and sales and monetization. These are the answers. You're very likely, guys, to match the orientation of the question. So if you get a nice question, you answer in a nice way. If you got a hard-boiled question, you start defending yourself. It just happens almost on a mirror neuron level. You don't think about it, it's intuitive, especially in a moment of stress. If it's neutral, it's neutral. If you're just having a comment, you answer with a comment. We don't stop and think, and this is what the pace kicks in. If you're racing through your talk, ladies and gentlemen, in racing for your answer, you don't have time to think. Pause. Pretty please. Pause before you address a question. A single second is fine. Same proportions, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It keeps matching. It affects you. 6 times more likely. Over 80% of the people match the question's orientation. Now, to you, it might seem like, oh, we got it already, Gleb. You know what? I don't believe so. Let's see. I need a volunteer. I need someone out of the group a founder to come on the stage and to tell their story. Around 2-3 minutes. I'm not going to give you a hard deadline. We're good on time. But then all the people in the room are going to become investors. I want you to figure out one promotion question and one prevention question. I need one volunteer from this room. I'm going to be with you here. This is a chance for you to address this group, to pitch your idea. So I'm sharing some of my time. And all the findings so far, the preliminary findings I have, we're going to put to use. So I'm going to get real practical real fast. I need a volunteer, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, I like this. Now, I've seen you so many times before. Would you like to give it to the woman? You good? We'll do some positive discrimination. And ladies and gentlemen, a hand of applause for the fine moment. We need a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, a microphone for this fine lady. Very good.
See you again. Hi, hello everybody.
All right, I will give you around 3 minutes, very quickly.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself to the group.
Okay, I'm Esther. I'm the CEO from Ghostwriter. Ghostwriter is a system that helps marketers to address and find a new profile, a new audience. How we do that? Thanks to our AI and semantics system, we help marketers to identify people, identify what they like to do, and address the new conversation, engagement conversation with them. The system is based on a SaaS platform, so a subscription business model. The customers just have to go to the platform and register, connect the account, and immediately they go to have profiles. And they also can test their content engagement before launching the advertising campaign. The team is composed by me and my co-founder. This is a CTO and created all the system behind, the intelligence system behind. We had good partners such as NVIDIA and Intel, good customers such as Moleskine, good investors since we recently funded money. And we just invite you to go to ghostwriter.ai and have a test. We have a 30-day trial test. You can be our next customers. Thank you.
Hand of applause. That's a 90-second pitch, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you. Thank you very much. Now, people who generally ask questions in juries, feel free to think of a few good questions, but mostly, who would like to ask her a promotion question? Let's start positive. Hands up. Sir, let's do it. And then you get a prevention question. You're pretty good at those. Let's do it. Christian.
Yeah, hello, my name is Christian. If everything goes right exactly as you plan, where will you be in 5 years?
We hope to be on the other side of the world in the Silicon Valley because everybody knows that advertising needs test and implementation and be brave. And as we have seen in the current market where we are, it needs a little more of braveness. And we hope to find that on the other side of the world. So in a few weeks, we are going to test our system for the US market. And in the 5 years, we'll be on the other side.
Right. How many words was that?
So much.
A lot of words.
A lot of
Case in point. Kai, may I ask you, what was her response? What did she say? Please.
They hope to be in Silicon Valley in 5 years' time. They're testing it out now for the US market. And that was about it that I got.
You got the idea. That's an immediate acid test. Keep your answer short, ladies and gentlemen. 60 words is way too much. You got the idea. Thank you for a good question, by the way, in terms of being positive. Now let's get a little more difficult very quickly. Now, Yuri, if I may engage you.
Prevention.
Prevention question to this fine lady. Now, you've seen it. You've been on a lot of juries. Help me out a little bit. You're being negative. I'm sure it's an easy thing to do, right?
It comes naturally.
I love negative question.
Now, your job is to reframe this question.
Okay.
Do not immediately answer it like this. Think through your answer. I'm gonna give you a hint.
Okay.
Considering the partners that you mentioned, we're talking about billion-dollar companies. How do you, as a tiny startup from Europe, from a fragmented market, not get lost with NVIDIAs of the world?
That's a pretty good one, huh? That's pretty good. Hand of applause. That's a pretty good. That's of a professional VC, Change Ventures. Thank you very much. Miss, you had a time. I bought you some time to think. Let's do it.
Yes. Thank you for the question. We start with NVIDIA and also with Intel to cooperate with them, being useful for them in their AI programs. And we are programming to get more in touch with them using their, also their resources and be even more helpful to them.
All right. What sort of answer was that?
Promotional.
All right. How kind of answer was this? She took the bait in many ways. Now, this is a bit, human conversations are messy, ladies and gentlemen. I would focus on tone of voice. Your tone of voice, although it was mostly steady, did not give the impression that this is going to be about growth. This is going to be about that you're going to be one of the top players and you see massive potential, because promotion answers, ladies and gentlemen, have to focus on growth, not risk prevention, not defending yourself in front of a hard wall question, but showing that you can grow your company. Either you do it for numbers or you do it for your current clients, what you already have.
Say it's something, you have something they want. That's why
Okay.
we have something they really want, right? Say that.
Thank you.
Let's do one more to see what she really got, and there will be one last thing. Wallace, may I ask you for help a little bit? Hard one, a really hard one. You know all of them, right?
Okay. There are a lot of players in this space. How are you going to beat them?
We have a unique selling proposition that beat them because we couple semantic system with AI. Usually competitors use just one of the two systems. We are the winners because we are profiling better using both.
Okay, what was guys? How was it like for you, Wallace?
It was okay.
It was okay. It could be better.
It didn't turn into a positional discussion, I would say. It was more neutral.
Neutral.
But I didn't feel the growth energy.
All right. Let's see how we can address it in a slightly better way. He's talking about competition, right? How are you going to compete with the big players? If the big players are in a market, that presumes it's a very big market, is it not? The good go-to textbook way is to focus. So thank him. Well, if I understand correctly, so the paraphrase is very good. You reflect back the question, and then you focus on market growth instead. Now, I'm not asking you to be politicians. I'm not asking you not to answer the question. But do not, please, get sucked into a conversation about how you are going to prevent losses, how you're going to minimize the competitive risk. Because if you are in that position, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to lose. Am I being clear? Final attempt. Could you paraphrase it with a promotion orientation in mind? So say thank you, rephrase, and focus on market growth, on market size. Clear?
Could you repeat a little bit?
Thank you very much. He asked you about the big players.
Yeah.
How are you going to compete with them, essentially?
Yes.
If I understood correctly. Say thank you to him. Rephrase the question. Hopefully, when you're rephrasing, make it more positive,
Okay.
but close. And answer about market size, about market growth. Clear?
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, miss.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. We are going to acquire a big portion of the market. So because the market is so big, we are sure we can be competitive in part of this sector and going acquire even more portion of it.
All right. How's that? Better. Much better. Hand of applause for this fine woman. You may sit down. You have a lovely smile. Next time when you're answering, smiling. I sometimes forget it, all right? Smiling is good. You may sit down, miss. You've been very, very helpful. What is your name once again?
Esther Liquoi.
Esther Liquoi from ghostwriter.com? .ai. .ai. Ghostwriter.ai, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. And applause. I'll finish with this quote. Neil Gaiman is one author I really appreciate. It's a long chunk of text. It's about stories. Who wants to read it, read it. Who wants to listen to me, listen to me. He also got inspired by Tolkien. It affects his work. He's a student of the monomyth, the hero's journey. Stories, ladies and gentlemen, are memorable. They stick in your minds. You have to, of course, potentially answer questions about them. But even if you're not there, your name might be forgotten, but the story of your company will live on if you do it right. It's hard to tell it, but if it sticks, it matters. My name is Gleb. I teach people how to pitch, how to tell stories, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Gleb. Amazing to see you. Thank you.